Welcome back to In the English Corner. This lesson right now will deal with using a consistent verb tense. Now, I want you to keep in mind that all your verbs within a sentence should all try to have them all in the same verb tense. It's important that you don't shift verb tenses unnecessarily in your writing. So verbs will be in the past, the present, or the future. Now, if you're uncertain how to pick out verbs, then you will need to review my video on verbs and how to select verbs. A change in verb tense indicates a change in time. For example, if you begin writing in the past tense, then don't suddenly change to the present tense unnecessarily. So in most cases, in most of your writing, if you begin in the present tense, you should stay in the present tense. The odd time you might have to change that. And specifically within a sentence, you don't want to be shifting tenses unnecessarily. Now, shifting tenses, why don't you want to shift them? Well, it can cause confusion to your writing, and it makes your writing difficult for your reader to follow. So sometimes if I'm reading something and you're starting in the present and then all of a sudden there's an unnecessary shift in the past, I'm wondering, why are you doing this? Why are you not continuing? If you're writing a story in the past, just continue it in the past. You may force your reader then to shift from one time frame to another if you're shifting unnecessarily and you're not consistent. So you would only shift verb tenses if it's absolutely necessary. Now here's one example that I've given you where I have written a sentence and I've shifted verb tenses. I was, past tense, very tired yesterday. I hope I will feel better today. So I've gone with the past, I was. I hope in the present that I will in the future feel better today. So in this example, it's necessary to shift into different tenses because in this case you're making your meaning clear to the reader. But remember that in most of the time you would be using the same tense in a piece of writing throughout. I've given you some examples to show you. Let's look at the first one together. When the teacher came into the room, the students are talking loudly. Take a look at this example. When the teacher came, that's the past tense. She came into the room. Now you're doing the present. The students are talking loudly. You can't do that. You cannot shift and have the present go from the past that she came, and now you're saying the students are in the present. Both the verbs have to agree. So I've changed it to say when the teacher came, that's the past, into the room, the students were, past, were talking. Or you could have had them both in the present and say when the teacher comes into the room, the students are talking loudly. So both in the present, both in the past. It wouldn't make sense to shift in this sentence. It would actually be a grammatically incorrect. Let's look at this next group of sentences. She went to the complaints department and lodges a complaint. All right, let's look at why it's inconsistent. She went means in the past. She did that maybe yesterday or last week, went to the complaints department, and now you're saying lodges in the present tense. Incorrect use of the verbs. You're inconsistent here. So you could put them both in the past tense here, and you'd say she went to the complaints department and she lodged a complaint. Both in the past, making it consistent. Or you could do both in the present. She goes to the complaints department and lodges a complaint. Again, they have to be consistent. Let's look at these next sentences. My brother cries very easily. He often goes into his room and throws a tantrum. He stayed there for a few hours hoping to get attention. Why is this inconsistent? Well, let's look. He cries is in the present. He goes is in the present. He stayed in the past there for a few hours hoping to get attention. Oh, and here's another present, throws. So my brother cries easily, he goes into his room, he throws a tantrum. So all of these are in the present. But now this one is in the past. He stayed there for a few hours hoping to get attention. So one of those verbs in that group in those two sentences throws off the sense of what you're trying to say. It's inconsistent. So how would we correct it? Well, you could do them all in the present. Since 3 of them are in the present, you might as well do the 4th one in the present as well. My brother cries, present. Very easily, he often goes into his room, present. He throws a tantrum, present. And he stays there for a few hours. Those are all in the present. The alternative is to put them all in the past. My brother cried very easily. He often went into his room and threw a tantrum. He stayed there for a few hours. So if you were writing something about the past, something that your brother used to do, you'd do it all in the past. But you're talking about what your brother's doing on a regular basis. So the best thing would be to put them all in the present tense. So I've given 2 examples for us to work on together, just to clarify. 1. Susan throws the dress on the bed, yells at her mother, and started a fight with her brother. Look carefully at that sentence and see for a moment if you can figure out which of those 3 verbs, there are 3 verbs, which one is inconsistent. Susan throws the dress on the bed, yells at her mother, and started a fight with her brother. Right, if you pick this one, you're right. This is in the past. Susan throws is the present. She yells at her mother is the present, but started is in the past. So there are 2 things you could do. You could either make them all in the past or all in the present. Now, since 2 of the verbs are in the present, you probably wanted to speak in the present, so I would change this one to the present tense. Susan throws the dress on the bed, yells at her mother, and starts a fight with her brother. Or if you wanted to talk about something that happened last week, then you would put them all in the past. Susan threw her dress on the bed, yelled, ed, at her mother, and started a fight with her brother. So all 3 need to be consistent. And in this final example, smoke billowed from the overheated van. Jim opened the hood, tried to see what the problem was, and calls a tow truck for assistance. So let's read that again. Smoke billowed from the overheated van. Jim opened the hood, tried to see what the problem was, and calls a tow truck for assistance. Can you see which of those verbs is not consistent? Well, let's look. Smoke, billowed, you've got your past tense ed verb. Jim opened the hood, past tense. Tried, past tense, to see what the problem was, past tense. But now look what you've done. Calls is in the present. So you don't want to change all the verbs. Clearly you're talking about the past, so this would be in the past call. So that is a major error, not writing inconsistent verb tense. So review this carefully, and again, be sure to let me know if you do have any questions or if you'd like further practice exercises. But do remember that all your verbs, unless the odd time for a specific reason, as I showed you in the first example, we shifted verb tenses, normally your verbs will all be in the same tense. All in the present, or all in the past, or all in the future. Thank you. Bye-bye.